I'll be honest with you, the moment our machine started screaming and the power went dead, I genuinely thought I might die because of a woman with a clipboard. Not a storm, not a hospital failure, not some tragic accident, just a petty HOA president who thought rules mattered more than a human life. Yeah, that actually happened. Let me back up a second. For the last 2 years, my bedroom hasn't looked much like a bedroom. It looks more like the corner of an ICU ward. There's a ventilator beside my bed that breathes with me soft mechanical pushes of air every few seconds. Feeding pumps, monitors, backup alarms, wires running everywhere like spaghetti. It's not glamorous, but it keeps me alive. All of that equipment hums 24 hours a day, and every single one of those machines depends on one thing: electricity. Lose power and everything starts ticking down like a clock. We prepared for that, of course. My parents installed a battery backup system that can keep my life support equipment running for about 8 hours if the power goes out. Storms, blackouts, whatever. We've had a few close calls before, but the system always held. What we weren't prepared for was Karen. Karen moved into our neighborhood about 6 months before everything happened. The street used to be quiet, the kind of suburban place where people wave while walking their dogs, and nobody really cares if your trash cans stay out an extra hour. Then Karen arrived. Within 3 weeks, she had inserted herself into the HOA board. Within 2 months, she was the HOA president. And once she had that little title, well, she started acting like she'd been elected emperor of the cul-de-sac. It started small. Grass height inspections, complaints about garden gnomes, passive-aggressive newsletters about maintaining community standards. You know the type. My parents had informed the HOA about my medical situation the moment we moved in. We handed them documentation. A nurse even came to one of the meetings to explain how critical uninterrupted electricity was for me. Everyone nodded sympathetically, even Karen. Or at least we thought she understood. Turns out she understood absolutely nothing. The trouble started on a Tuesday afternoon. My dad had just finished mowing the lawn. It was hot, he was sweaty, and he left the mower sitting near the edge of the driveway while he went inside to shower. 20 minutes later, knock, knock, knock. My mom opened the door, and there stood Karen. Clipboard, perfect hair. That tight little smile people wear when they're enjoying themselves just a bit too much. She pointed at the lawnmower like it was radioactive. That's a violation of aesthetic standards. My mom explained Dad was literally about to put it away. Karen didn't care. Rules are rules, she said, in that slow, syrupy tone people use when they think they're the smartest person in the room. And this is your second warning this month. Second warning. The first one, by the way, was because our trash bins had been visible from the street for an extra hour. My mom just nodded, apologized, and closed the door. She hates conflict. Dad rolled his eyes when she told him. We figured that was the end of it. We were wrong. The very next day, we got an official violation notice in the mail. There was a fine attached to it, too. But the reason made no sense. Unapproved exterior modification. My dad called Karen. What modification, he asked. Her answer chilled the room. Apparently the small medical alert sign next to our front door, the one that tells paramedics someone inside depends on life support equipment, had not been approved by the HOA Architectural Committee. Dad tried to explain. It's not decoration, it's for emergency responders. Karen stayed perfectly calm. All signs must be approved before installation. The way she said it, it was like she enjoyed the absurdity. That's when my parents started feeling something wasn't right. Like maybe this wasn't about rules anymore. Maybe we were being targeted. So they decided to attend the next HOA meeting that Friday and deal with it directly. They hoped the other board members would step in and shut Karen down. But Karen had other plans. The day before the meeting, Thursday, everything exploded. I was in my room resting. My nurse Sarah was checking my monitors. My mom was in the kitchen making coffee. Then suddenly, the familiar steady hum of my ventilator changed. Instead of smooth airflow, there were beeps. Sharp, frantic beeps. Power failure. The house had gone completely dark. Our backup battery kicked in instantly, which is exactly what it's designed to do, but the alarm still went off everywhere. Machines screaming, warning lights flashing. My mom ran into my room. Her face was white. What happened? Sarah had already rushed to the breaker panel. The main line's been shut off, she said. Not just a breaker. The entire feed to the house. Dad sprinted outside, and that's when he saw her. Karen was standing next to the electrical utility box at the side of our property. Holding a lock, she had the panel open like she owned the place. Dad told me later that something inside him snapped the moment he saw that. "What did you do?" he shouted. Karen didn't even flinch. She just held up a piece of paper. "You have an outstanding balance of $150 in unpaid HOA fines." Dad stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "So you shut off our electricity." Karen spoke slowly like she was reading a rule book. "Per the HOA bylaws, services may be suspended for delinquent accounts." Services. She said it like she was a utility company. Dad tried explaining again louder this time. My son is on a ventilator. Karen shrugged. That's not the HOA's responsibility. Then she snapped the lock shut on the power box, turned around, and walked back toward her house, like she had just finished watering the flowers. Inside the house, the atmosphere was suffocating. Sarah was already on the phone with 911 and the electric company. Paramedics were dispatched just in case. The power company said they'd send a crew, but it might take an hour. An hour. My battery system had about 7 hours of power left, but every beep from those machines sounded like a countdown. My mom sat beside my bed holding my hand. Dad stood there silent for about 30 seconds. Then he grabbed his phone. My dad's the kind of guy who fixes problems instead of complaining about them. He called an old friend of his, a guy who runs a massive event production company. Concerts, festivals, that sort of thing. Dad explained what was happening. There was a long pause. Then his friend said 5 words, "Give me 45 minutes." 45 minutes later, our street heard something it had probably never heard before. A diesel engine, not a truck engine, a monster. An enormous semi-truck turned onto our quiet suburban road. The thing looked like it belonged at a stadium concert, not between white picket fences. On the back of that truck sat an industrial generator the size of a small car, 1.2 megawatts, enough electricity to power an entire music festival. The truck backed into our driveway with a roar that shook every window on the block. Technicians jumped out and started unrolling cables as thick as fire hoses. And right on cue, Karen came storming out of her house. She looked like she might actually explode. "You can't park that here," she screamed over the engine noise. "This is a residential street." My dad walked toward her slowly. "This," he said calmly, pointing at the generator, "is our new power source." Karen's mouth fell open. "You can't do that. The noise, the fumes. It's an HOA violation." Dad leaned a little closer. "Call the police," he said. Then he added something colder and explained to them why you cut power to a man on life support. Right then, flashing lights appeared at the end of the street, 2 police cruisers, and the power company truck. Neighbors had started coming outside. People were standing on lawns and porches watching the chaos unfold like it was a live TV show. The officers listened to Dad's explanation. Then they listened to Karen. She kept repeating the words HOA bylaws like it was some magic spell. Finally, one officer walked over to the utility box. He looked at the lock. Then he looked back at Karen. "Ma'am, did you put this lock on a public electrical utility panel?" Karen straightened her posture. "Yes." She sounded proud. The officer sighed. "Ma'am, that's felony tampering with public utilities." The street went silent. "You're also looking at reckless endangerment." Karen blinked. "What?" The next sound was the click of handcuffs. I wish you could have seen her face. That smug expression she always wore gone. Completely gone. She looked like someone had unplugged her brain. "The power company guys cut her lock off in about 10 seconds and restored our electricity." The generator crew packed up their cables. One of the technicians gave my dad a thumbs up. "Your buddy said it was an emergency." The truck rumbled away. And just like that, the quiet suburban street returned. But the story didn't end there. The very next day, the rest of the HOA board sent us a written apology. Karen was removed as president immediately. All the fines disappeared. And Karen herself, well, rumor says she sold her house 2 weeks later and moved out in the middle of the night. Nobody on the street has seen her since. But people still talk about that day. The day a giant festival generator rolled into our neighborhood just to keep one kid breathing. And here's the strange thing I realized afterward. Power isn't always about authority. Some people think power comes from titles, rule books, and little clipboards. But real power is knowing when to stand up to someone who abuses it. Sometimes that means fighting back. And sometimes it means parking a 1.2 megawatt generator right outside their house. Now, I'm curious what you think. If someone in power knowingly endangered your family over a petty rule, how far would you go to fight back? Would you follow the rules? Or make a little noise of your own? Tell me what you do, and if you've ever dealt with a Karen like this in real life, share your story. I'd love to hear it.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.